Welcome to the Lunch Club podcast. I'm here with legendary director Kevin Connor. And after leaving school at the age of 16, Kevin entered documentary film company British Films Limited and went on to work on iconic movies, including The Land That Time Forgot. Kevin, it's fantastic to be speaking with you. And for you, it all began with editing.
I got into the cutting rooms at an early age. I was lucky. In the 50s, there wasn't much going on, but I managed to get into a documentary company. And through the contacts there, I then got to Shepperton Studios. And from once you're in the circuit, as it were, you go from studio to studio. And I got to Pinewood and Elstree and MGM when it was a studio. So yeah, I got into the cutting rooms.
It's an astonishing foundation from which sprung the most extraordinary, and the volume of your work is amazing.
Yes, I was just looking over it, and it seems to be an awful lot of stuff there, and I don't remember doing half of it, which is a worry. Anyway.
Well, what does stick out in the memory? I mean, you've worked with some extraordinary names. I mean, people like Peter Cushing and Doug McClure. What was it like working with such, industry icons?
Well, I mean, they were great. Peter's one of the first I worked with as a director. But he was such a gentleman. But all the actors, Donald Pleasance and the people I had on that, Leslie Ann Down, they were really lovely to work with. And the Milton Subotsky of Amicus gave me a wonderful crew. Alan Hume, again, a legendary DP. So I was really in good hands. But when you're in the cutting rooms and you work on feature films and so on, you know your way around on sets and how it's all put together. So I was just given the best people to work with, and I'm really lucky
to
get
team
off.
around. It's often the way, isn't it? And I've got a question actually from Doris Spriggs, who's a Lunch Club member, who'd like to ask about From Beyond the Grave, your first film as a director.
Yes.
She says it boasted a cast to die for. You were clearly very persuasive.
No, I was totally in the hands of Milton and the casting people, and they came up with these. I would never have thought of David Warner. I mean, I would never thought of asking David Warner to do a horror film, and they up popped his name, and they said, "What about David?" I said, "Goodness, yes, absolutely no problem." But now I have to give. A few of the lesser actors, I don't mean lesser in that way, but not names, who I'd worked with on little films I've been trying to put together myself. I had those work for me, like the guy in the mirror and so on. But no, I have to give all credit to Amicus Films and the casting people there for bringing me those kind of Donald Pleasance names and those. I mean, wonderful.
Yeah, Donald Pleasance. I mean, he's somebody I've always loved his work, to be honest.
Oh, a delight, absolute delight. Word perfect, easy to talk to and chat. No egos. Listens to you. Not that I had much to say. What can I teach Donald Pleasance about, or Peter Cushing about acting?
Well,
So
you say that, but it's the amazing thing as a director, isn't it? You've got hundreds of questions that need answering and hundreds of people who want those answers at any one time. How did you kind of keep it all in your mind at once? When you're working, did you enjoy the pressure?
Oh, yes, yeah. Well, when you're editing and you're working on what Oh Lovely War, Young Winston with people like Attenborough and Carl Foreman and so on, you've got to be on your toes because they're very smart people, and you do. You retain. I mean, I can still remember lines from the films I edited,
Really?
Because you run them so often. You and in those days you used to be on a film for like 6-9 months. It was a long haul. Nowadays you're out of it. Once the film is locked. I mean, the producers can't wait to get rid of you so they can carry on with the dubbing and music and everything. But it's a different business today than it was then.
And as you say, so much of it, does come down to the edit. And actually, Alan Church, another Lunch Club member, would like to know Do you feel happiest on the stage floor or in the cutting room, supervising the edit of a movie you've just directed? He reckons personally the real magic comes in the editing room, but what do you reckon?
Yes, it does. I mean, that is a moment. It's a sort of you reach the end of the rapids, and the river becomes calm, and but then of course you're left with what you shot, and you say, "Oh my goodness, why did I do that? Why did I do this?" But usually I've got it well planned out in my head, the way, because when you edit, you learn more from bad directors than you do from good directors, if you see what I mean. It's because if it's a good director, it all goes together very well. I mean, it's the acting is superb, and all the rest of it. When you get a sequence which hasn't been covered well, and you can't speed it up or do much with it because it is what it is, then you subconsciously learn a lot of tricks to do once you get onto directing a film, and if you see problems, you can immediately pop into a close up here, do cover a little bit there, that'll get me out of that, but I want to use that take, because as you shoot, you know what take you want to use. You can when it's working, the hair in the back of your neck prickles a bit, and that's it. You've got it.
I mean, was there actually? Can you think of a specific moment where in the edit you're just wishing it's not quite there, but as a sort of, if you like, a failure, it actually was an instrument of wisdom?
No, I can't off the top of my head. But I mean, it's more like when I did take about a year ago a look at From Beyond the Grave, and the editing is so slow compared with editing today, and you think, oh gosh, I wish I could have another go at that. I could probably take 20 minutes out of it quite easily. But I can't think of anything specific. It was a long time ago, when I did those particular movies.
I've got a question actually from Alan O'Duffy on kind of editing.
Yes.
Alan wants to ask you, what do you think of the process whereby the editor is on set and the data management and basic editing of the rushes, are then available to take home for you, for the finance people, and anyone else who fancies? Is this a workflow that you've used, and what do you think about that?
Oh, well, no, I came across that more when I moved to America, and that whole digital thing came into being and so on. No, I used it. I mean, but I didn't take the dailies home at night because I kind of had them in my head, and you sort of, if it's too late, you've done that, and you've got the next day to look forward to, or to plan, or just get in your head and get on with it. But the DIT guys I've worked for have been really helpful and cooperative, but I've never had any sort of people looking over my shoulder saying do this, do that, or whatever. I've been left alone. Most of the films I've directed, there's never been anybody, on my back, as it were. No, I embraced anything that comes along to make life easier. I mean, I do miss watching dailies in lunchtime or wherever with the rest of the crew. Whereas now, you're in they all disappear into a sort of void, and you end up later in the cutting room. There's once the film finishes shooting, it's all sort of done and it's gone. Whereas that with the crew seeing the dailies and discussing them and more one-on-one at the end, I miss that side of the using film as opposed to the digital era.
Yes, the sort of collegiate. It's the familial nature of making movies, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But you have to embrace it. If you don't, it's amazing. It's just what you can do today. If only we could have done that with our monsters in 1974 or whatever it was, with our dinosaurs and things. If I'd had that at my fingertips, but it was, it was all hand puppets and front projection and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's something you briefly touched on, life being a bit different in the States. How's it been for you living in Los Angeles?
Well, I mean, I came to have a go at Hollywood, like most people do, and of course the 70s, late 70s, early 80s is when I came here. The English film industry and it was in the doldrums. Things were very bad, work-wise and so on. So, like a lot of Brits, you have to go have a go because it's like Everest, And if you fail, at least you've tried. But I got lucky within 3 or 4 months. I got a break and got a foot in the door, and off you go. And one thing rolled into another, and I've been here 40 years now. So in one way I don't regret it, but I do miss Pinewood and Shepperton and those haunts.
Yeah, and a pint, I'm sure.
And a pint, yes.
Nick Haig asks, what was the most difficult film that you directed, either from budget restrictions, tricky actors or crew, challenging locations, or any other reasons? I mean, you mentioned puppets just there. I imagine they couldn't have been easy to work with.
Yes, they were good, but the guy that operated them was a bit temperamental. But he was wonderful. He crafted them and designed them and so on. A bit like the Muppets, the way they operate the Muppets, really, but a much bigger scale in terms of the size of the beasts and whatever. I never. I mean, I get on with actors very well, and I can't say. There's a couple that have been a pain in the arse, but you deal with it and get on with it, and one day the film's got to finish. And but by and large, I've really had a very good time with actors and enjoy their company and so on. But the most difficult film. I don't know really. I mean, I just enjoy getting on a film set and making a movie, and I just, if there's any problems, I try and iron them out. And any temperamental technicians, but very few and far between, I must say. I really can't say what film I wish that was all over. Oh, I wish this film would finish. The famous phrase, but. No, maybe there was an Italian production I did that we never got the script right, and the casting was never good. It just didn't, it just didn't work, and so on. Anyway, but no, I can't. I've enjoyed every film, everything I've done. It's just the best job in the world.
Oh, that's lovely to hear, and I can't help wondering if it's you that brings that that shining sort of positivity.
Well, I hope so. I mean, it's life's too short, and you're so lucky to be doing it. It's why make it miserable?
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
With that in mind, what would you say? What piece of advice would you offer to somebody who's new to it but wanting to devote their life to creating film?
Write. I would write as much as you can, even if it's rubbish and you throw it away. I think the writing is the key to. What's the key? Luck is the main thing, quite frankly.
So much that,
to be honest. But I think if you can get that skill of a writer and insist that eventually you direct what you write, that's. Because you do hold the thing that hopefully everybody would like to make into a movie. Writing and get the best people around you that you can, the best actors, the best technicians that you can encourage to work with you. But writing, take acting lessons, even if you don't want to be an actor. I mean, just get to understand the craft.
Yeah. And I guess ask questions as well. There's no such thing as a silly question. There's finding out and learning is ultimately going to make you a better contributor.
Yes. You assimilate stuff, and nobody taught me how to edit. But I work with superb editors, and you just look and listen and watch and so on, and you assimilate it somehow. I know there's books about editing and directing and all the rest of it, but there's nothing like being in the room on the set, and that's where you learn.
Yeah, do you find, looking back on editing, that there's a sort of almost in a musical sense, like a rhythm to it? When you're feeling the beats, you're feeling the action. Does that? Are you led by that, or are you kind of more? Is there more of a kind of a blueprint to what you're doing?
Well, I've cutting dialogue scenes. I always take the rhythm of the actor, because the actor gives you a rhythm to how he's emoting or how he's doing doing the scene. So I use that rhythm when I want to make the cut at a certain point. The action material, you just go through miles of stuff and you take out the best bits, join them all together, then you whittle them down until you end up with the bits that work together and so on. And that's just a question of just going through miles and miles of stuff. And today, of course, with the electronic shooting, you can squirt off miles of stuff, and doesn't cost a lot of money like it used to. They only printed what they wanted with film, so you didn't have a lot of stuff to play with. But today it's you can just keep the camera rolling, and there's little magical bits, but you've got to sit there for hours and hours going through all this stuff.
Yeah, distilling and refining.
Yes, yeah.
Was there a favourite genre that you loved to work in?
Well, I'd love to have done more thrillers. I'm not a great sort of horror fan, although I got my break doing a horror film, thanks to Milton Subotsky, and I must say I've not really sort of pushed that area, but I like drama, I like period stuff very much so. I did a couple of Dickens things, which was a great experience. But yes, psychological thrillers I would like to have done a lot more of. But once you get into the American film or television world, you kind of you get into a pattern, and they hire you for doing certain genres well, and that's you tend to. Because the one that loves working, you just keep going and see what comes along. And a lot of the time, I've tried to develop my own projects and invest in adapting shows and so on, books. But I've never been that successful in getting things off the ground that I wanted to do. But there you go. I mean, it's a matter of taste and timing and luck. And so on.
It rings so true that I think it's I imagine it's more common than either of us really kind of. Yeah, it's one of those things in life where once you get known for doing one thing, that's kind of that's used almost on a monorail, and no matter how many times you're sort of waving, going, no, but I can do this, I can do that.
Of course you could. I mean, it's you're right. It's but they put you in a box, especially here. When I first came here, I did get a break doing a horror film, Motel Hell it was called, and it was I got that after 2 or 3 months. Pure luck, just by I was walked into an agent's office, and he said, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, no, nothing at the moment." He come in here, he said, "I'll get you a job," and he picked up the phone and literally called another agent and said, "I've got this young director from England. What do you got going?" And whoever it was on the end said, "Oh, fun enough, the United Artists are looking for a director to do a horror film." And he said, "Oh, you've done a horror film?" I said, "Yeah, I've done a horror film." Okay, so and I got the gig, So they started me, but then I got sidetracked into because you've got to keep working and so on into episodic, Hart To Hart, Moonlighting, and Hotel and stuff like that, and. That's all. You can't do movies of the week. You can't do miniseries. You can't do feature films because you're an episodic director. So you have to, work your way through that for another year, and get your break, and and so it goes.
I remember Hart To Hart very well. And
Yeah. Listen, you've got to stay in. You have to stay in the game, because all the time you are learning. You are meeting new people. You're meeting new actors.
Yeah.
Stay in the game.
I think that's right. The more you're operating, there is always an opportunity to pick up a new skill and learn from something, or just cogitate, isn't it, on your own craft?
Absolutely, and you never know who you're going to bump into, and one thing leads to another in this business.
So true, isn't it? It's so true.
Yeah.
And interestingly, you have done quite a few Christmas movies, haven't you? I think it's 5 or more now.
I'm afraid I got
Santa
called
Junior,
King of the
for Christmas, Farewell,
King
Mr.
of the
Kringle.
Yes, well, King of the Christmas movies.
Yeah.
Well, that is in the last 5 years or so. When I did a lot of Hallmark movies, and they're fun to do, and they're not particularly tricky to do. Because of the budgets and the content is what it is, and it feeds a market, and so that's what I found myself doing in the latter end of my career, as they say.
Are you a fan of Christmas, actually, just as it goes?
Not particularly, not particularly. But it's the fun of making movies, while you still try and get your own stuff going.
Yes.
God knows how much money I put into options and things.
Is there an option that what's the option that you really wished had come off and come together?
Well, there's a couple. One was HMS Ulysses, which I'd love to have got, but it's owned by Count Volpe, who bought the book. I think it was one of the author's first books, and this guy bought it outright. So, but he's apparently very difficult to deal with, and I've never managed to. I've got very close to it, but the figure was so outrageous that a waste of time. I did option a book called Target Churchill, which is about the Iron Curtain and the attempted assassination of Winston Churchill as he was giving that speech. Whether it happened or not, we don't know, but it was a wonderful story. Wonderful script, but I don't know. You've just got to hit the Churchill cycle at the right time to get it off the ground. But that cost me a pretty penny. But anyway, you have to. The director today, you have to develop your own stuff. You have to put your own money up. As you just can't go from one film to another anymore. It's especially if you want to do the stuff that you want to do, you have to put yourself out there with your own projects. And I've got one that I've been trying to get going with an English writer, Connemara Days, and it's about the Quiet Man and the film unit that descends on the little village and so on. It's not a remake of the film. It's just the Wayne and John Ford are there making the film, and it's about the lives of 2 or 3 of the characters that are involved in the film. Like the first AD falls in love with a local girl, and so on and so forth. It's all fictitious except for the actual making of the film. We reenact some of the scenes, but that's been a tough one to get going. It's not that expensive, but then John Wayne went out of the favour about a year or 2 ago, so that put me back another couple of years. But I keep trying. It's a good. So yeah, I've got 2 or 3 bubbling away. Still going.
You never quite know when they're going to come off, do you? And also the influence that your work has had. And Dave Worrell, actually, from the Lunch Club, says, I've often considered the Edgar Rice Burroughs films you made with Doug McClure a bit of a forerunner to the Indiana Jones movies in terms of adventure and fun. But Dave goes on to say, I get the feeling your producer was happy to stick to a slightly lower budget formula rather than upping the stakes a bit more. Or am I being unfair, says Dave. Is Dave being unfair?
David is absolutely right. I couldn't persuade them to. Amicus never had a lot of money, and by they had particular budgets and marketplace and genre, and Amicus sort of fell apart sadly, and I continued doing a couple more with producer John Dark, and I mean, when we ran the Land That Time Forgot at Leicester Square Odeon, I mean, the audience, and they're all kids. We just invited children, 12, 13, 14, whatever. They all went crazy. As soon as it's like Saturday morning movies, here's the Indians and the cowboys and everybody's cheering. And so as soon as the Germans appear, boo, 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 and he's behind you and all this stuff, they thoroughly enjoy it. I thought, I mean, why aren't we, up getting, into a different marketplace? And then along comes Star Wars and Indiana Jones and so on. So, our technology, the things we were doing it was really using old techniques on, how to make these kind of movies that they would have done in earlier days. We didn't have all that technology, so I don't know. They're kids' films. They won't make money. Kids' films don't make money, boy. But there you go. You still have to, when you make Indiana Jones and so on, you still got to attract a big star and a big name and a bigger budget. Those. I mean, I think Land That Time Forgot was like $250,000 or something. The cost of it, when you think, and it was all cutouts and photographic cutouts and things like that. It was really brilliant. I mean, I had Derek Meddings, one of the great effects supervisors ever. We were lucky to get him. So
it sounds like you had a lot of fun as well.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I think Shepperton, we were the only film in Shepperton in 1974 when we made the film, and the back lot was still there as a back lot. It's got a river running through the back there, and we just stuck a few palm trees and things, and I mean, made it Pellucida or wherever it was, and then we moved over to Pinewood. Pinewood Studios, did the rest of the films there. We made about 6, but we wanted to do the John Carter series, but the estate, the Edgar Rice Burroughs estate, wanted so much money that it was out of our league. It wasn't because of the success of People and Land at Time Forgot and Earthscore and so on. So and it was a lot more complicated as well, but anyway, that's it's all history and all part of a travel, part of a journey.
I mean, did you enjoy that aspect of it? The kind of being on the road and living out of a suitcase. Did that appeal?
Oh, absolutely, yes, yeah. And I mean, I've been all over the world. I've been India, Greece, and Japan, and I mean, everywhere making these. I got sidetracked as well for a long time in doing miniseries in Morocco, and some religious or big biblical epic miniseries as well for TV, and it takes you all over. Been to China and to Mongolia. It's great because in Thailand, the local crews that you pick up are just wonderful, and you go to places that you would never go as a tourist, and you go in India, you go into various palaces and so on, and meet these people that still think they're living in the days of the Raj.
Did you ever get into any tight spots that you were worried about?
No, I think we were doing North and South, which is a 12-part mini-series Civil War thing in Mississippi, and I think we ended up going to a famous brothel in somewhere or other, and it was a very dubious place, I must say, and I was with the producer, and he said, I think we should get out of here very quickly. He says, I don't know what we're doing here. And I said, no, nor do I, Bob, but thank you. And so we scarpered, but there was sort of overtones of, I don't know, threat or, I don't know, danger. But no, by and large, we'd never downtown LA, when you finish shooting at 2 o'clock in the morning, is not a nice place to be when you're the last car in the car park or something, leaving. But otherwise, no, I've been very lucky.
So what would you say in your work are you most proud of? Is there a specific thing, or is there an aspect of your work?
Well, I just one. I mean, I'm very, very fond of The Land of Time Forgotten People and so on, and those days, and I get more comments and questions about those movies than anything I've done since, except this Motel Hell that I did when I first came here, which was a very, just a quick story. When I got that script, I took it back to the apartment to read it, and the first scene was an exterior night, long shot, Motel Hell. Cut interior motel room. A fat woman is in bed with a pig and a dildo, and I thought, I've come here to Hollywood to do this crap. This is it, and it was, Anyway, I'd finished reading it, and I saw something that I could do with it. So I went back to the two boys that had written it and said, look, if we take out all this childish kind of stuff that's not going to mean anything 2 weeks after you show the film, let's make it a dark comedy, tongue in cheek, but we don't show that it's tongue in cheek. It's just the way we're going to play it. And they rewrote it, and that's what we did. Anyway, what was the question? I forget now.
The proudest sort of aspect or moment in your work?
I did a film with Ian Charleston, a miniseries in Africa called Master of the Game, and Donald Pleasance again, a lovely actress Sherry Lungi, and a wonderful cast, and it was a big, like a sprawling adventure type film, rags to riches, and fortunately I did the rags to riches bit, which is always the most interesting part, only because it was such a big canvas, shooting in Africa and the adventure and so on. I did a lovely film with Brian Dennehy, Lion in Africa, again, which was an absolute delight to do, and very proud of that. And I guess I'm very proud of the Land and People, although I'm not a great science fiction expert or auteur, or read lots of books. I don't think I'd even ever read Edgar Rice Burroughs books, but Milton was so pleased with From Beyond the Grave that they offered me that one, the Land That Time Forgot, which was a slightly bigger budget, but it, from the, and we had 12 weeks to shoot it or something. So
wow.
It was
yeah. So in terms of on-screen talent, people who are gone or around currently, is there a couple of people you could name that you would absolutely love to direct?
Well, anybody really, but no, I had ones that are Gene Simmons, Mickey Rooney I had in a movie.
Oh, wow.
Can you believe how old I am? And Olivia de Havilland I worked with, and when you watch Netflix and Hulu and these and the BBC stuff, the acting is so good, and the up and coming actor. I mean, the actress that was in Queen's Gambit, I mean, just superb, and I see all these. The writing is good, the acting is good, the photography is good, the speed of the work. I mean, it really is amazing. No, I mean, I just like I like to work again. Work. That's all.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
No, we'll wave the wand and we'll find whoever you like. I agree with you. I think the confluence of the big and small screen now, the quality and the caliber that's coming out in such quantity. It's absolutely astonishing.
Yes.
Final question is actually from online, actually from Bettina Franks. If you're putting your feet up and you just want to be entertained, What is the one movie you're always going to go back to and flick on? It can be one of yours, it can be one that you love, anything you like.
Oh, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. It's quite not any film of John Huston's, but or Ford. They were my two sort of heroes. If I could have been anyone, I'd like to have been Huston, and his lifestyle. There's a period that he lived in, and the films he made, and so on, and the adventures and whatever. But it's The Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
With your feet up, we shall pour you something lovely. And although we can't have a lunch in person, you are hereby cordially invited.
In La La Land.
Do you know what I'm thinking, Kevin? I'm thinking an away trip for the lunch club to Los Angeles, and we can all take you out for lunch.
Thank you. I will take you out. You lot out. Thank you, Ollie, and I do hope I haven't waffled on too much. But,
You've been nothing short of a delight. Honestly, it's just so entrancing. You know, obviously I've grown up watching your movies, and it's just, it's a real privilege for me to speak with you.
I got lucky. I really did. I mean, I must say, I got lucky in the business. But you know, I was sorry, just to divert very quickly. I was born in King's Cross, but lived out in a place called North Mimms, very near Elstree and Boreham Wood and so on. And there was just during the war, they built an American hospital very near us, and then the Americans all finished, the war was done, and one night there was a big glow of light coming from where this American hospital was, about half a mile away. So I went down there, and they had turned some film, it's 1951, some film company had turned the hospital into Auschwitz. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was a night shot, and of course filming at night is always magic. They turned it, and there was an eagle film, Odette VC, Odette I think it was called, and they turned, there was these Nazis and dogs and people shuffling into this, what was the American camp, a couple of years before. It's unbelievable. So that really hooked me as well into movies. And I worked, would you believe, with the editor of that film. Eventually, I got to work with the editor of that film and the sound recordist. Wow. Yeah, there you go.
It's astonishing. You never quite know where it's going to lead, do you?
You don't. No.